Roll call.
Hassel, here.
Lane, present. Menon, absent so far. Okay. Just a reminder, if everyone could check their cell phones, make sure they're turned to silent. I would appreciate that. Notice that the meeting is being recorded. And if you could stand with me, face the flag, cite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so our first item on the agenda is to review and approve any available minutes. Gail,
I have
you
no,
have an opportunity?
yeah, I did. I looked at them. I didn't have any problems with it. I saw nothing that I had a problem with.
I also reviewed it and did not have any changes, additions, or deletions. So, hearing that, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
A motion to accept the minutes is written.
I second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Lane, aye. Okay. Our second item on the agenda is the agent report. David?
As last meeting we had discussed, or was brought to the attention about concerns about offsets to wells, there was some confusion between variances and local upgrade approvals. As such, I reached out to Dan Karpaska, who is the chief over at the DEP office in Worcester, and asked him, because I couldn't find anything specific that would require the board to have some sort of a deed restriction if a local upgrade approval is granted for a well being less than 100 feet. And he has no knowledge of anything as such either. I'm bringing that up because the board did vote back in April to approve a local upgrade specific to a well offset which was greater than 80 feet to the soil absorption system. So Dan couldn't find anything in Title V. I couldn't find anything in Title V. I don't believe there's anything that would require the board to ask for a deed requirement monitoring the private water supply. If it was an abutters private water supply, I think it would be a different scenario. I don't even think it would be a local upgrade. I think it would have to be a variance. But I think because it's the homeowners, the existing homeowners situation, it falls under that category. We had received a complaint, as you may be aware of mosquito concerns at the 228 Leominster Road property, backing up onto 4 North Row Road property. I've met and spoke with Maxwell, who's our conservation agent. He's provided me some information on that address. Specific to 228 has a dam that's been having some problems there. So DCR and the Office of Dam Safety has been working on that project. They're implementing temporary mitigation program for sediment and other debris from clogging up this dam and overflow outfall spillway. Nobody's been able to provide me a timeline for actual construction of the dam, to reconstruct it, or to know when there will be a completion for this work. So I don't have an answer on that. We also talked about at the last meeting our body art regulations, and to see if we could get further review by an outside individual, Cheryl Sabra, who is with MHOA. I've reached out to her. She did have a need to address it. She thought it would be great for her to look at it. She also was very, very clear that it would not be looked at from a legal standpoint. That is town council's even. So she was very, very clear on that. She's happy to look at it, but not from a legalist.
What's the use?
Punctuation?
Yeah, okay. All right. Carry on.
We've got the Zoning Board of Appeals has recently received an application for a 30-unit multifamily development, 121 through 125 Flanagan Hill Road. We've done some unofficial soil testing there through the applicant. Nothing more than that has been done from this department standpoint, although there is decent soils over there for purposes. It's my understanding that this will be a single family or an over 55, a single or two-bedroom home establishment versus a multifamily with multiple bedrooms, 3 or 4 bedroom homes. So I believe it's going to be based on a 55-year or older community. I know that item 4 is going to be discussed, changes for the planning board, but Steve Wallace has sent us out another email this week asking us to provide any comments we have by the end of June. So hopefully that the board will look at that tonight and have any comments, or we'll be able to get back to them before that. So
But that's why I wondered about the agenda for tonight.
What was it for?
Zoning board of, the planning board is going to be putting changing the regulations. We're going to talk about that at item number 4 tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
We began our beach testing this week. Again, beach results was a 75 within the guidelines, within the limits, so we have no issues with that. But this does begin the beach testing season. We'll be testing it on a weekly basis. We'll be bringing the samples to the lab. If the limits exceed 235, we will then have to retest and hope that they come back less than that. Sometimes we get a false hit or otherwise, but if they come back less, then we're fine. If they come back and exceeding that for the second time, we'll close the public beach.
Did we get the results back?
We did, and it was a 75. Yep. And that's all I have.
So I'm going to go back myself. Oh, do you have any questions?
No?
Okay. To Pratt's Pond there.
Yes.
Did Maxwell give you a contact for the dam safety person?
He did not give me an individual name. He said DCR at the Office of Dam Safety.
Okay. Oh, so it's just, that's part of DCR. I didn't realize that. Okay. Gary. So I know Jay is here. Do you want to address us on that?
So I talked to DCR.
Can you just come up? I know.
Oh, fish, come on. Jay Westbrook, 4 North Road Road. So I talked to DCR before I came here. They're waiting on a report from their consulting engineering company before they will order the 228 on what it has to do. And the time frame on that, their fiscal year ends at the end of June, but they give a leeway, and it's possibly going to be in July that they will have the report, and then they will issue an order. It's all fine and dandy, unless that dam backs up on me again. Okay.
How was it during the last storm? Oh, it wasn't really the last rain.
May 8th. So May 8th was.
No, this one. We had rain over the last.
Yeah, but it's my backyard is unusable because the pond is not draining fast enough. And I think at one of the Conservation Committee meetings was either Terry Heinhold or something, someone mentioned the fact that it has lost 4 million gallons of volume because of sediment. So it can't absorb. So that water, and the volume of water hasn't decreased because Petruzzi Pond across the street from me will overflow. And my wife has a video on her phone. Do you have your phone with you?
I do.
It's incredible. We've had to have the police come, and they did. They closed the road at least once because of that.
So who from the DCR have you spoken to?
Yeah, I have her name written down, but I didn't bring it with me.
Okay. You think you could send that to
Me? Perhaps.
myself or wondering, we have a limited scope
I understand,
of,
but I'm trying to engage as many people as I can.
and I understand that, I would do the same thing if I was in your situation.
The owners of the 228 will drag their feet.
But once the DCR tells them they have to do
Yeah, right, then they have to.
yeah.
But
But, as far as the mosquitoes and stuff, if I'm not really sure what we can do on that, but
it was to bring, so there were two things. There was a lot of standing water, which of
Yeah.
course breeds mosquitoes, and we couldn't get the grass cut, and it was high, I mean, it was above my wife's knees.
Yeah, I
So
did see
that's
the
ticks, right? So plenty of ticks and snakes, and that's because the water backs up. Now on May 8th, I have a drainage pipe and a sump pump. The drainage pipe got submerged because the water backed up that far, and when that happened, water came into my basement.
backwards.
Yes,
So,
the 228's water trespassed on my property.
that is a thing now.
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, I do.
That hadn't happened in
25 years.
And to be clear, the pump was fine. The pump has worked. The pump has been working for 25 years. And this was running every minute to 2.5 in the high, when it was, and not to belabor this, because I'll show you the video, but we heard it at 8:30 at night, just finishing up dinner, and we did not go to bed until, that was on a Thursday night, we didn't go to bed until Saturday. So we stayed up, making
Squeegee.
sure that water was heading towards the pump. Otherwise, I'm not going to guess, but I would say we had 2 inches all 4 corners, so it reached everywhere. So we made sure that pump, geyser pump, he went back. We had hoses out the window, we had the pump going 2 straight nights.
And I presume you're documenting all this as you...
Oh, there's pictures and everything, and
And the other thing that I would suggest is to reach out to the state, our state senator and state representative. They both have office hours at the senior center once a month. And if I was you, I would go loaded for bear. This is what I'm bringing to the DCR. This is my house. This is my yard. What would you do if it was your house? And
Peter and I...
We've been asking that question for 38 years.
Yeah.
What would you do? How would you like this?
yeah,
Well, if you remember at the Conservation Committee, when their chairman, when we talked about fixing Pratt's Pond, was more worried about the salamanders and the box turtles than a private residence.
yeah.
Because Terry did allude to the fact that, and it's one thing to say, it's another thing to actually put a pencil to the magnitude of what that would take. I have no idea. As to that pond should be dredged. Because if you're losing, if it's just, it just makes sense. If there's sludge and sand and tree debris, I mean, where does the water go? It gets caught in the pipes, it gets caught, we're sandwiched, it gets caught from Petruzzi Pond and it gets caught exiting Pratt's Pond. It's nobody's water, it's coming from wherever it's coming from, and we're in the middle.
And I've researched it to see what jurisdiction the Board of Health has, and
Not much.
I can't. It's really a Conservation Commission issue, and the DCR. Every dam in this belongs to somebody. There's no abandoned dams. They're all assigned in ownership.
Are they privately owned?
Some of them are.
So what does that mean?
That person is responsible to maintain that dam.
Which is why the 228 is being ordered.
And who's responsible for, Ginny Dolan's property, now deceased?
That I don't know.
That's a problem.
The DCR Office of Dam Safety should be able to tell you.
Well,
Too
they're on
small.
the 2-way driveway is on the other side of that is where the state comes in. That's the difference on the 228's property, where they say they're doing what they can to mitigate, which is basically a rake pulling this stuff out, but they don't live there. They don't live there.
Yeah.
We're the ones that are, hello, we're backing up.
Well, that's why I say sometimes it's worth it going down, and I have gotten good results talking to Peter Durant's people there on
There you go,
personal.
Jane. You gotta one-on-one with Pete, because you know.
So, I mean, I will continue to look to see what the Board of Health, if there's any jurisdiction that we have, and if there is, then we will exercise that jurisdiction. But
Now, you asked, what did we do? What have we done with the last range? Well, because we had, it's not a finished basement, but it's painted, had carpet.
do you mind, can you come up so that?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
The reason we actually go there is so that the camera
course.
is on you.
So the carpets, we cut up the carpets, rolled them up. The town delivered us some sandbags. Those carpets, I looked at them and go, I know where you're going. Top of the driveway, packed with sandbags.
So Petrucci Pond, if it overflowed,
If we could channel some water down the drain, the drain that's to the left of our driveway, we would do that. Dave Fisher basically said, you guys have a lot of issues with, North Road Road. There's a lot of water coming down North Road. And I said, it's really not, because there are catch basins that Jay cleans out every winter. Our house, our neighbor's house, a gentleman up the road who no longer exists, the Gray family, there's 4 catch basins that are pretty much catching the water coming down North Road Road. But Pratt's Pond is over here, and Petrucci Pond is over here. So we're at the funnel, and it's just racing through our yard. I have to show you the video, it's pretty impressive.
and DCR, the volume of water for Petrucci Pond does not meet the DCR threshold.
Supposedly.
I don't even know what that means, Jay.
The volume of water that it holds does not meet their threshold. And they did that.
Threshold for what?
Volume, how much water it holds. There must be a threshold for the
Before they're responsible for it?
Before they do,
Mitigation?
their jurisdiction.
Oh.
Okay. Pratt's Pond is different, much bigger body of water, and the DCR is only concerned about downstream.
Right.
We're upstream.
Yeah.
We're downstream from Petrucci, but they don't really care.
Well, that's
Yeah.
definitely where the politicians come in.
Yes.
You're stuck between
Stuck is
Yeah.
exactly what we are.
Yeah.
Stuck.
bureaucracies.
Right.
Yeah.
Has the DPW been involved?
I don't know, has the DPW been
Oh,
involved?
they've been out, before they realized that it was a private dam, one time they did come over because I had, my backyard was ponding.
And it was frozen. So you'd look at it, and I was like, oh my God, we have an ice skating rink in our, and Jay's like, what are you talking about? And there it was, in a winter window. Like, there's water here. And so that was a problem.
And so they cleaned it out, and then they were told, oh, you can't do that,
Basically.
because it's private property.
Well, who said that they can't do it?
It was private, 228 was basically, no, this is private property.
Well, that's important to make note of.
So,
Okay.
Is it being directed from somebody else's property to your property?
Is the water being directed?
It's backing up.
It's an interesting question. Where the heck does that water come from? You know, the police officer that came to the house on May 8th because I said, please shut down the road. And the reason why I did that was because as cars were going through it, it was waving
so
towards the garage door.
they'd hit it, and they'd send a wave.
It would send a wave. I
and a
mean,
wave down.
you'd feel like you were at the beach. It was a wave. So the gentleman, I want to say Cooper, but I'm not
Yes.
sure. Cooper, thank you. Anyway,
It's coming down North Road Road.
it was
No,
coming
come
across, Gary, across North
From
Road.
Petrucci Pond on the other side of our,
Not down.
it overflows, and And that's another issue with the DPW, is that the drainage pipe can't handle the volume.
And they
And so it-
potentially alluded to the fact that, well, maybe it's not really the drainage pipes, maybe it's our yard, because the water runs under the street, and maybe there's a big stone must be blocking, and maybe that's why it's backing up and coming over the road. So there was a playground ball from our neighbors that was actually in this little spillway. So I was like, it woke me up. I'm thinking, what if that damn playground ball gets stuck in that pipe? Well, the next morning I looked out my kitchen window and I was like, hello, ball, because that ball came through, no problem.
It's sitting
Yeah.
in a little body of water we have.
And years ago, when Kenny Williams and another older gentleman than Kenny at the time, they came to, because it was the same issue. And the yard, I wish I had a picture of that, literally mushroomed up like a...
There was a blockage.
Like a volcano, almost like it was just like the grass came up. And they ran so
I never
fast.
saw two old guys run so fast
To get out of the way.
It
We
was
have
fun.
not ever seen that again. That was a pretty interesting sight. And there probably was some kind of boulder or something. I mean, I was amazed at 2 70-pound sandbags that we had at the top of the, not the DPW, they gave us bags with little shovels in them. But we had five 70-pound playground sandbags, tubes. And those things were 20 feet down the driveway.
May 8th.
May 8th.
Water is very powerful.
Very
Yeah.
powerful, yeah. So,
All right, so we'll continue to do,
Sure.
look into doing whatever we can do, Jay, but I just, you know,
I mean, there was the ticks and mosquito issue, and then the snakes. I mean, my neighbor said, wow, what are they feeding those snakes? Because just when I had mentioned that in a text.
turtles and frogs.
Yeah, I was concerned. She's got 2 little kids, and I'm like, not little, but I was like, hey, your kids play out in the yard all the time. And, yeah. I would love to show you this, but I don't want to waste a ton of time. This video, because honestly, I don't want to say you don't get it, but
I'd like to see it.
would you like to see that, Gary? I mean, it's pretty impressive.
It's a violation of building code for any property owner to direct water from their property to another person's property.
And again, yeah, I mean, directing it, I want to be,
But that's not the case here.
I want to be sensitive
Well,
towards.
in a way it is, because that water, if it can't drain properly out of Pratt's Pond, is directed back into my property.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've already said this, I think, but so who owns Pratt's Pond? No one.
The 228 does.
So it's their responsibility to fix it.
Believe me, we're going down that avenue.
Sorry, I'm walking around my yard in the dark. So we're at 13 seconds. You're going to have to wait till like 46 seconds, but you hear me sloshing. My kids yell at me because I'm terrible at this. So we have a little bit of landscape lighting. I'm coming around to the head of our culvert.
This noise is
This
rushing
is
the
water.
water.
This is rushing water. There it comes. This is the driveway over here. This is the yard.
Where's North Row Road?
This way.
Is this because we
Look,
just
look,
had...
look.
Yeah, I see it.
Look at this.
It's happened probably a dozen times.
That day, we got 3 inches of rain, is that the problem?
But, 18 months ago, the Lemonster storm, we had more rain. We had flooding, which we called on. We did not have water in the basement.
So you don't attribute this to a rainstorm?
We've had a lot of rain. I can tolerate. We can tolerate
Then I
rain.
had the September 11th
We can't
one
tolerate
from 2
too
years
much
ago.
more staying up
Same
48
Same thing.
and having 2 to 4 inches of water in my basement.
But you don't think it's caused by the rain?
No, that was definitely because the discharge pipe, the French pipe off the corner of the house.
It takes a left-hand
was on-
turn
Pushing it.
about 5 feet from the garage.
If the surge was higher, it would crest that.
It might.
So this was May 8th and then September.
September 11th. Oh, I've got it.
We didn't have, yeah.
We have a pic, I don't know if I have that picture.
Well, I think we're going to move on, but
Sure.
we will, Jay, you can, continue to communicate with me. Anything new, or if I think of anything, or if I can find anything, I will certainly communicate back to you,
I'll text
through the
you.
board.
I'll send you the name of the lady that I'm talking with.
Okay.
If you could just give me one more. This was an old picture, the DPW has this picture. Oh, I'm sorry.
Here's my driveway. Jay's truck, my car is still on, and this is the water.
Where's your house, right here?
My house is right here, right over here. So Jay is standing
That's-
up on a hill.
That's prior to 2010.
Yeah, that's prior to 2010. My house is right here. So when I called the police and said, please stop the cars from coming down the road, I'm waving water into the garage. I did not want that to happen. And in his police report, very nice man, he said,
Cars could get by.
he says, yeah, the owner asked me to stop, close the road, but the cars were getting by, okay.
Yeah, but that's not why you were asking.
Missed the point, I'm sorry. Nice job, very nice job.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
I'll get in touch with Peter and I'll get that name to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies, thank you.
Good night. I did have one question, David, on your activity report. With, I guess you were working with Ryan. It says to locate private wells. What was that? On the, May 28th. (137 to 145 Leominster Road). I'm just wondering what that was about.
Yep, so DPW was looking for, I believe it was the DPW was asking on their behalf as opposed to someone else's behalf, the private wells within the radius, 500-foot radius of the Sterling landfill. Now, I don't know if that was something that pertained to the landfill activities or if it was pertaining to the possibility of putting the new DPW facility there, out back there. But we were researching the private wells within 500 feet of those addresses.
Mass Mapper, you can get that on Mass Mapper. Did you? No?
If all the wells are not plotted on Mass Mapper.
Yeah.
So I don't know the year, it was not too far back in history that when you drill a well, the well drillers are supposed to put the GPS coordinates in. But previous to that, they weren't doing that. And, if we could find out, I think he was just doing due diligence because we may have had well permits or plans.
That's a good point. Yep.
That may have provided that, so.
Yep.
But that explains that particular address.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Moving on to new business, number 3, Board of Health employee reappointments. We have a letter on file for everybody?
We do, with the exception of the animal inspector. I've been working with Sean.
Yeah.
They've hired an animal control officer. Discussion hasn't quite fully evolved if that person wants to maintain or manage animal inspector duties. So, once I get that, hopefully within the next month, I will bring that back to the board if he's interested.
Gary, do you have any questions on that? Employee reappointments? Comments?
Just I was wondering, for all these employee reappointments, the funding for those employees, does that come out of the Board of Health budget?
Yes.
So we have a line item for each one of those people?
We have salary and what's the other one called? Salary and
Salary and payroll, not payroll,
hourly.
hourly, yes.
Wages, salary and
Thank you,
wages.
Thank you.
So, yes, in our budget, we have salary and wages, so.
So for example, do we know, for example, at any particular time that the animal inspector, I mean, is that a fixed fee for the entire year because we need an animal inspector to be on call all the time?
Animal inspector's wages, right?
Animal inspectors,
Oh, that's one of the salaries.
salary item.
Yeah.
So that gets distributed twice a year. The others that are not in our wages line item or salary line item would be the plumbing inspectors, as well as the burial agent. The Board of Health does appoint those positions, but they're not covered us. The burial agent is the town clerk. She has her own salary line item.
Right. And then the plumbing inspectors are paid by
The
building department, so. Okay. Gail, have any questions or comments? No. Okay. Anyone?
Can you go back to the weekly activity report for a second?
Okay, you want to go back to number 2?
When you say soil testing, is that sieve analysis? Or is that
Which date are you referring to?
I think it's
looks like June 2nd? Schedule soil testing.
Okay, so that particular date, different line items, we would be scheduling soil testing with engineers, doing research on that, getting our files together, making sure the applications come in, all the information is together. We would then reach out to the engineer, pick a date till we can schedule the soil testing. Down further, 6.5 specifically, it says soil testing, and on that particular date, that was specifically, we went out to the field, did perform soil evaluations, perk tests, and deep hole observations.
Yeah, the class and the type help differentiate between administrative and actual field work. So.
And unfortunately, on 6.5, we just put soil testing, environmental health. It didn't break it down to, how much administrative we did on that. It was just.
When you say you reviewed Title V, and so the Title V report came in?
Title V reports come in, we do review them.
Now, do you initial off on those reports?
We do.
So you put your name, you put your initial?
Put an initial on.
And the date you reviewed it? Is that new?
It is pretty new. Yeah, we've just started doing that.
Well, we changed the process too, so, yeah. Okay?
Just one more comment. You did deep hole testing and you did perk tests. So the soil was not too wet, saturated with all this rain?
Which address are you referring to?
Guess I'm looking at Gibbons Drive, Squareshire Road.
Okay, so again, Gary, that was just administrative. The class delineates that was done in office work.
Okay.
It wasn't actual soil testing for that.
The soil testing down below where you spent 7 hours on Tanglewood Road.
Yes.
That soil wasn't so wet that you needed to do a
That was not so wet that we couldn't perk it.
Okay.
Good soil there, Eric.
Oh, yeah, you.
Yeah. Okay? All right. All right, we're going to go back to item number 3. So we've had discussion. I will entertain a motion to reappoint our health agent, associate agent, administrative assistant, the alternate food and septic inspector, the alternate animal inspector, the burial agent, the plumbing and gas inspectors, and the alternate plumbing inspectors. The only one we're leaving out right now is the animal inspector, because we're waiting on word back. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I motion we accept them or implement?
Reappoint them for the-
Reappoint them, okay. I motion we reappoint all those you listed except the animal inspector.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to say that I'm going to abstain on that because I just got back here and I'd like to have some time to consider these things. And you're making this appointment now, and I'm not going to expect anything I'm going to do at this point to change that, but I just want to abstain from that.
You're going to abstain from the vote?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, no comment from, you've already made your comment. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Gary abstains. Okay. So we'll move on to item number 4. Item number 4 is, we did have a request from our town planner to have some input into the zoning bylaws that they're recommending for change this coming special town meeting in the fall.
Has that been scheduled?
The town meeting has not been scheduled yet. They have requested that we give them input by the end of the month, which is why I wanted it on this meeting agenda today. Specifically, what I have asked to input on, and I brought this to the planning board and Steve Wallace's attention, is 301 4.6 table 4.6.6 item 9A, which requires a 6-foot offset to high groundwater. Something that I believe, and I have confirmed through the DEP, is not within the jurisdiction of the planning board. Chapter 111, section 31 says only boards of health can do this. And then there's a process and a hearing that goes along with that. Title V has a 4-foot or a 5-foot offset depending on what the ground perks at, but there's never a 6-foot offset to high groundwater mentioned in Title V at all. Steve Wallace looked at it and he is proposing that change, and I think it would be appropriate for us to comment on that, and my opinion would be to comment affirmatively that that does need to be removed from that table within our zoning bylaws.
What goes in its place?
Nothing. Title V handles it.
Okay, so they're removing it from their purview and they're respecting the fact that that is our purview, not theirs.
Correct.
Okay. I would agree that would be a good thing to do.
Any comments, Gary?
No, I think back before I was on the Board of Health, didn't I find something about this, this issue?
Did you?
Yeah, I thought I identified this out of that particular regulation.
You might have pointed this one out.
Yeah, I pointed that out.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's the same one we were talking about.
Yeah.
Could you find a printer that can print a smaller font or something like that?
That's, what I did is I did a screenshot off my computer, and that's the size it printed. An exercise in your eyeballs. So Title V, 15.212 sets the minimum separation to high groundwater. And really, that should be good enough. We would be the ones out there enforcing when someone puts in a septic system. So, no other comments from the board? Any comments, David? Elaine? No? All right. There are no other comments. I'd entertain a motion.
is the motion that, yeah, I would agree that that should be removed, but it's not, it's up to them to remove it, right?
They are proposing to remove it, yes.
Oh, well, I would-
So
Okay.
what I would suggest is a motion to write them a letter saying that we are in agreement that that should be removed from the zoning or protective bylaws, since it is already contemplated within Title V, and it is within the purview of Title V.
Did they write anything to the board on this? Did they request a review? of
They
this
requested input, yes, by the end of the month.
verbally, or
No, but in writing.
did it in writing? Where's
Yeah.
that document? Is that available?
No, I got sent an email from Steve Wallace, and I believe David did too. Yeah. So generally what Steve does is he sends it to, if there's an agent or someone in a position like that, and the chair of each board, he asks for input that way. And then it flows downhill, so.
Okay, make a motion to acquiesce to their request to delete that particular paragraph.
Okay. And we also need to authorize someone to write the letter. I'd be willing to write the letter to the planning board on behalf of the board. Just if I'm writing it, I would need the board to approve that I'm writing it.
And, yeah, okay, my motion would be to allow you to request that you, since you volunteered to write this letter, have to go ahead and write it.
Okay. All right, I have a motion.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lane, aye.
It's great.
Okay.
I would request in the future, if you get these emails from people requesting something, could we include it in the background of like one of these tabs?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Okay. All right, going on to item number 5. This is kind of a carryover from our last meeting where Gary was discussing a potential requirement to have wells tested if we issue a local upgrade, within the 100-foot.
Are we calling it a local upgrade, or are we going to call it a variance?
That is technically a local upgrade.
Do we ever define? Do we ever get straight what the differences are?
Well, some things are kind of gray, but if you look in Title V, this is actually listed under the local upgrades.
I really, understanding all the time I've been, I really never fully understood.
Yeah, and you know what, when you ask the question, a lot of times you don't get a really clear answer. However, what is clear is what is a local upgrade, because if you look at, what did I write it? 15.411, is it 411? No, 15.405. It actually lists what local upgrades are. And so 15.405 1G, referring to local upgrades, reduction of system location setbacks from water supply lines, private water supply wells, but not within 50 feet of the well, tributaries to surface water supplies, but not within 100 feet of surface water supply or tributary thereto, or open surface or subsurface drains which discharge to surface water supplies or tributaries thereto. So in this case, in this particular case, when you're doing a repair and it's within, well, more than 50, but within 100, that comes under the definition of 405 1G.
So it's 15.405.
15.405 1G. Local upgrade approval. So,
Well, the reason I brought that up is that in the past, I'm aware that in years past, when this sort of thing came up, and you reduced the distance to the well, we would require an annual test of the well and associated deed restriction. Now, so I researched this a bit with some contacts, and I provided some of that information here. And it seems consistent with what other folks are doing. And I also do, just for information, one of the modules in the Learn Title V program, which has to do with variances, and it talks about that in there. That you've got to evaluate, if you're reducing from 100 feet to something less than 100 feet, never going below 50 feet, that you've got to, it hasn't been codified, I guess, but in the training materials and in practice, I've seen other people do it, that you have to make some judgment as to what's the risk to that particular person's well being contaminated. I mean, imagine you come into a property, you bought a house and you never really knew anything about Title V before you buy this house. And then you come to realize that your Board of Health allowed this guy to put a subsurface absorption system, 51 feet, not 80, but 51 feet, okay, just 1 feet above the absolute minimum. I'd be concerned about that. Was there any justification for it? I might not be so concerned if it was 80 feet or 95 feet, But certainly at 51 feet, I'd want to have some understanding that my well's not going to be contaminated. Because, people don't really realize when they buy a house what's been done, already been done, unless there was some sort of deed restriction which requires this testing. And then you would know. That's why I think that's important. If you have an engineering analysis, it's down gradient, that sort of thing. Maybe the risk is very small, but you have some justification for approving that variance, to a smaller distance than what's codified. We've done it at least twice.
I guess my comment is, one of the reasons I got on the Board of Health is because the Board of Health kept on having extra requirements other than Title V that wasn't necessarily recommended by DEP.
Right.
And so I'm not fond of doing that.
I still think this is well within Title V. Everything I've read from, in fact, I think I've sent you something from the Title V specialist in Worcester. Did I not send something like that?
No, what you sent, I know, 16-page thing I read.
Okay, but I got something in here. This particular one is a fellow that I happen to know. And he writes his explanation. That's just an individual. He happens to be a chair of the Board of Health in a town that I'm familiar with.
You have this, right?
Yes.
Okay. We've all read that, Gary.
But there's another one. I also had another one that I thought I'd sent to Elaine. You did not get that one? I sent one from, happened to be the fella that's in the Worcester Regional Office.
Dan Kapaska.
Oh, yeah.
Is it in here?
Didn't mind, but
Okay.
I don't see it in here. I should have brought a copy, but I screwed up tonight and got here late.
All right, so I'll read what you're talking about, your email to Dan Kapaska.
Yeah.
So what Dan Kapaska responded was, although not specifically stated, Gary, for a repair, it can go to 50 feet per 15.2111.
Right.
If the hydrogeo study has not been performed, some Board of Healths have a bylaw requiring an IA with disinfection.
That's
So-
an innovative and alternative technology.
Right.
Right. No, we're not requiring either of those. All of us suggestion is requiring.
Okay, but that was Dan's.
what is
that was
IA?
Innovative
Innovative.
alternative, so a whole new system.
Okay.
It's a technology that is more stringent in terms of the effluent contamination level.
So now I'm going to put my comments on the table. The first thing, Gary, is you sent the email. It's from a PE, who is also Board of Health. Who is this person?
Just a fellow I know.
All right.
It's an opinion.
Right, it's an opinion, it's a recommendation, it's not required. Local upgrades are not as strict as variances. It is gray in some areas, at least in the way people describe it, but there is a bright line within in Title V. I question our legal standing to impose this on somebody. How do we do this? How do we enforce it? What if they refuse to do it? I don't see anything. There's nothing in here that says if you do this, or you can do this, or suggest that you do this, and then how do we enforce it? What if somebody just thumbs their nose at us? I don't know if it's enforceable.
Practically speaking, I don't think that's an issue.
Well, okay, but I get the floor. I'm going to say all my comments first, then we can have more discussion. And then what if something changes? So if we did put a title restriction on, if something changes, what if they went to town water? What if they moved, what if they put a new well in that's 100 feet away? It's very difficult to remove a title restriction. I've actually looked it up since this came forward. Everything that I see says it's difficult to remove a title restriction. So now you're testing somebody's well that doesn't even need to be tested by any standard at that point. And I do believe that imposing this does exceed Title V, because Title V doesn't require it. Matter of fact, in my discussions, I was told if it's more than 50 feet away, there's no threat to the well. The state goes 100, and this was anecdotal, I will admit that. The state goes 100 because it's over and above, and that's what the state does. And that question came from another one that we did a few months ago, where we approved a local upgrade for that person as well. I think that was on Princeton Road. Yeah.
How close did that one go?
I can't remember. It was more than 50, less than 100. I can't remember off the top of my head.
We had 5 at the same night.
And so if we are going to impose this, and Dan Kapaska's suggestion is that he refers to it as a bylaw, but it's really a regulation, that we pass a regulation saying that we do this, and that would definitely exceed Title V, because Title V doesn't require this. I know I'm sitting here.
Could you read that?
What?
What did he say?
Not in this one.
No, and when he replied to me.
When he replied to you.
What did he say?
Although not specifically stated, Gary, for a repair, it can go to 50 feet.
Right. Okay. But did he say something, did he recommend that you, when a...
He says,
when a
some
hydrologic-
Board of Health have a bylaw requiring an IA with disinfection.
Right.
But he also, did he make a comment to you as well?
So I spoke to Dan, and remember, it sounds like you're doing a variance to the setbacks, which is fine. However, we're not doing a variance to the setbacks. We're doing a local upgrade approval. And to that point, the application, the Form 9A for that particular address, it's calling out under the local upgrade approvals to be less than 100 feet, less than 100 feet, but greater than 80 feet from the applicant's well supply. So we've covered that. We've covered that. It's a local upgrade approval as defined in 405G, not a variance, and not to be confused with the two.
But in any event,
Well, you wouldn't be able to, new construction, you're talking about variances for new construction?
We're not talking about new construction here. We don't.
No, I know we're not talking about it here, but when you say the word variance, are you interpreting that variances apply to new construction?
They could apply to new construction.
Yeah, variances can apply to new construction.
And can you, I didn't think you could vary that for new
You
construction.
cannot vary it for new construction.
Right.
You cannot vary the distance for a well for new construction.
Right.
So we're not, but that's not even on the table.
I just, a little clarification.
So, the other thing is, just if somebody's well is contaminated, you can't tell where the contamination comes from. You can,
You could do a DNA analysis.
the other thing, I'm sitting here because this board at the time tried to implement something that was greater than Title V, not necessary, and cost people money. And now we're talking about doing the same thing.
Well, I don't think it's the same thing.
Okay, well, it's greater than Title V,
Sure.
and it does cost people money.
How
And
much does it cost?
it doesn't matter how much it costs people money. And even if it costs $50, that $50 adds up. It, just because we did it before doesn't mean, in my mind, that we do it again. I am not a nanny state person. I don't think that we need to regulate everything that people do. I think people are smart enough to take care of themselves. If someone buys a house with a well that's within 100
They wouldn't
feet,
know.
yes, they would. And as a Title V inspector, you know that if the well is within 100 feet, within that zone of 100 feet, the well has to be tested. It's part of the Title V inspection. That's a requirement from Title V. So to say a person would never know, they would have to stick their head into a hole because they get their Title V inspection when they buy the house. And right on there, it asks, is the well within 100 feet? If yes, you have to do a test.
Okay.
So I think it's covered. I don't think it's something that we need to require. Can we recommend that people have their wells tested? You know what? In the town I lived in before, I had a well. I had my well tested on a regular basis. Nobody ever told me to do it because you know what? I didn't have a septic system. I had town sewer and a well. But I did it anyways because I looked up how to maintain a well. And that's something, we were talking about, doing periodic advisories to people.
Right.
That's a perfect one. If you have a well, have your water tested at least once a year. At least once a year. And then, my very last comment is just in addition to what I said. You can never tell where the contamination comes from. And so what are you going to do if somebody's well comes back with coliform? I mean, we've had that happen, and we actually rectified the situation. And there are specific things that are requested to be done, but
Like a chlorine shock or something like that?
that's one of the things you do. Yeah, that's the first thing you should do. And then you can also put in filtering systems, which is what happened on Princeton Road. But that might not fix the system.
Might be a
it should
temporary
fix the
fix.
system. Yeah. Anyways, that's my feeling on it. I don't think we need to do that. I think it's going in the wrong direction. I think it's going backwards from where we were, where we are now, not where we were, but where we are, because we've moved forward to be just Title V. And, I'd like to stick to just Title V.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that? Okay. All right. Then we'll go to old business. And, last week I discussed the PFAS letter, last month, excuse me, that we had decided to send out, before the change on the board. I did come up with a letter, and I sent it out to various boards and commissions within the town. The Concom has already voted that they will sign on to it. The DPW discussed it at their meeting. They had a question on exactly what this would restrict. They were afraid that it was intended to restrict what farmers could do and things like that. That is not the intent of this. The intent of this is to restrict MDAR's list of herbicides used on rights-of-way in sensitive areas. That's it. So I did clarify that with Ryan, and I will, I told them that I would go to their next meeting to clarify that in person, and if they have any questions. I have not heard back from any other boards or committees yet on that, but that's where we stand. That's the letter. If you have any recommendations on changes to the letter, let me know. I think I am going to change the second to last paragraph just to make it clear that it's only referring to the rights-of-way and sensitive area materials list. That last paragraph is what may have concerned the DPW board, but the only thing is I would like the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources to also look at any rodenticides that are approved in public areas like this, not public areas, but rights of way like this, if that's the case, and remove any PFAS containing chemicals from that as well.
What prompted this letter?
What prompted it was we had, our town found PFAS in our public water supply.
Oh, and then, well, the other prompt was they sent the railroad, or somebody sent us a letter that they were going to spray. And so we just got the letter about PFAS. It says, well, I believe what they spray has PFAS in it, so if we don't want PFAS in the water, we want them spraying it. So that's how it came out.
So you know the railroads and the power companies have to notify the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission whenever they're spraying. So, you know, we had the issue with the PFAS in the water above the state limits, and then we got the letter, and we had a discussion here about it, and that point was brought up. So for every chemical that I found on their list that contained PFAS, there was an alternative chemical that didn't. So there doesn't seem to be any reason to keep the chemicals on that have PFAS. So I thought this was a reasonable thing to do. Obviously, we can't demand anything, but I think it's reasonable and it brings it to people's attention. And if we send it to our state rep and our state senator and DEP and DPH, then maybe somebody will focus on it. That was the thought. And if it's signed by more than the Board of Health, if it's signed by, you know, I'm hoping that the Select Board would sign on, the DPW Board, the Agricultural Commission, and I'm sure there's others that I forgot. I went through the whole list of boards and commissions. And if they seem to apply, I sent them an invitation to sign on to it. So.
The typical one that they use is Roundup.
Yeah.
And I was told that PFAS comes from the plastic containers that the Roundup is stored in, not actually from the Roundup itself.
Well, when I was doing my research, that's glyphosate. That's the...
It's Roundup.
Yeah. I don't recall whether Roundup said it had PFAS, but there was another one another chemical that specifically said the chemical itself doesn't contain PFAS, but they feel that it leaches in from the plastic containers that it's stored in. So maybe Roundup does, but, you know, I'm not saying this is an answer to everything, but if something specifically says it contains PFAS, we shouldn't be considering using it anymore, that's all. I mean, we can't solve all the world's problems.
I'm surprised they're asking us to solve any of this problem.
Nobody's asking us to. I'm asking, this was my idea.
Hasn't this been researched at much higher levels than,
I don't know.
no, you haven't found anything that,
No,
You do
I
the
think
state
unless
has done
people, I think unless people make noise, they're not gonna spend any.
for example, periodically, like right now, when the risk of Triple E or West Nile virus, comes to the fore, any given night, the state might fly over with a helicopter spraying, aerial spraying to control mosquitoes. And in that spray, there are PFAS because it's in the tote that they're spraying from.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to include.
It's not just a railroad. It's
Well,
the state.
this is for if they're spraying it on rights of way.
They're spraying the whole town of Sterling.
I've never seen a helicopter spraying in
I'll-
Sterling.
They do it. I'll get some more research on that, but I don't.
Yeah, do something, because, see, Millbury used to have it done, and I was told
They do it
Sterling
at
didn't.
night.
Yes, I was told Sterling didn't.
You don't believe that?
I don't believe it,
Okay,
no.
I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah? Please, Joe.
Because we could at one point in time, individuals could opt out of the spraying in your neighborhood, which was ludicrous because the guy next to you,
He's
the
getting
guy on
it.
the other side also want to spray. Well, you're gonna get sprayed because these sprays don't know boundaries.
Exactly.
But they sometimes do it off the truck,
I've heard of them
Sometimes they
doing
do-
it off of the truck.
and
I've
sometimes they do
never,
it via a helicopter. I just thought this problem would have been handled at a much higher level than.
well, all I'm saying is I did research. I looked at the list. I researched each chemical on the list.
What list is this? The list that these people are using on
The
the
rights
railroad?
of way and sensitive area materials list for approved herbicides for rights of way.
It was in a list they gave us.
It's published on the website. So I look what?
By Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources.
So I looked it up. I looked up the list. I then researched, on the internet. I don't know if it's 100% true or not. I put it back on them.
So
But
you-
clearly there were at least 5 chemicals that contain PFAS that were acceptable for herbicides.
Or did not contain PFAS.
I mean, that did contain PFAS. There were at least 5 that did contain
And
PFAS.
there's others that don't
That's correct.
accomplish the same herbicidal function.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And you're asking us to sign off on this now?
Well, we already agreed as a board to do this. So,
Was that last week or was that the week before I was here?
it was the previous board.
I don't have a problem with the
Yeah.
intent here. I just think I'd like to do a little research on my own because I
You
think
can
this-
do all the research you want.
I
I
just want to
mean,
look into this aerial spraying thing because I kind of think it blows us out of the water.
Well, it doesn't, because every little bit you put down adds another layer.
I realize that, but if you get, it's,
So if you can get somebody starting at one level, maybe eventually you'll get to the other level, but you got to start somewhere.
it doesn't cost us anything to do this. And all it does is bring it to people's attention.
okay, so
That's all-
back,
that's-
you're asking us to sign off on this now?
No, we've already agreed to
You've
do
agreed to
this.
sign off on it.
I just hadn't written the letter, so I'm providing it here
So
for you.
now you've written a letter. You're going to modify this letter at all? You said you were going to make one change or something.
Yeah,
So you're going to make a change?
yes.
Okay. And you'll have the change for the next meeting or change in between then?
No, I was approved at the vote to write the letter.
Okay.
So I'm just providing it basically for your information. However, if you have a suggestion, I'm open to suggestions.
Okay, I just would want to, I'm not going to do a thesis on this. I would just want to investigate this other concern I had because I know it was an issue that they were saying that.
All right, but you're talking about one thing and I'm talking about another,
Okay.
This isn't a letter
About
this
this,
isn't a
that's-
letter about spraying for mosquitoes. This is a letter about what is used on our rights of way in town.
Sure. Okay.
So,
By all means, research the mosquito spray, because I would be very interested, because I was told that Sterling doesn't do it.
Sterling doesn't do it. The
Yes.
state doesn't.
But I was told that Sterling
it's
has opted
exempted?
out. of the state doing it?
I believe so.
Okay, so if you find out different, I'd be very interested, because I was still strolling up that out.
So the whole point of me including this letter is just to let people review it, and if, I like to have eyes on before I send it out, that's all.
I don't blame you.
You know, okay?
Okay.
So we'll go on to the next item, which is discussion on the board's webpage. And I did notice that it's already been cleaned up somewhat with the dog waste bylaw and stuff like that. That's excellent, thank you very much.
Is the generic procedure there now?
The policies and procedures are not there. So, did you have a chance to take a look at the website at all?
I looked at the website relative to, see, I'm looking to get petition for reimbursement for a class, and they gave me a discount if I'm a Board of Health member, so it was still listing Al there. So I wrote a short note to the secretary or to the clerk. Could you change this, because it'll help you get a discount? Because it looked.
Your name's on it now.
It's on there now,
Yeah.
because I asked her, please put it on there, so that when they look at that, they say, you're not a member of the Board of Health, how come you want $25 off? Well, yeah, I am, so.
Yeah, and we can write a letter, which we do. I do it for David all the time.
Okay, so I'll give you the information
Yeah.
to get that.
The only time we have a problem is when they want a letter from the chair. I'm the chair, but I'm the one taking the class, and they say you can't write your own letter. And, you know, my head spins around. But that's easy to do.
All right. I'll get you the details on that.
So, did you see anything else on the website that you?
Well, I think it was very simple to send her a note. I mean, we can just send her a note, please put this policies and procedures, and take out for example, take out the communication problem. And she'll do it. I think she'll do it like that.
I didn't see that on there when I looked today, was it?
Okay.
I looked
So,
today.
yep. What did you see?
I don't remember seeing that communication thing on there.
Well, maybe they deleted that. But notwithstanding, they still need the policies and procedures document there.
So, this is what I saw that I think still needs to be updated. Is our mission statement changed when we did the new policy and procedures? So I would just like that updated.
Do we have that?
Yeah, it's in, the comprehensive policies and procedures. It's the first part of that.
Okay.
Okay? I think that whole policy document should be published on there as well, and that's what Gary was saying. That was one of the things that I wrote down. Under regulations and policies, and you guys can tell me if you disagree, but I don't think we need the variance hearing process during COVID-19 anymore. I think we're done with that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Do we still have an opportunity to Zoom these meetings or no?
Yes, but people can Zoom, you've Zoomed in, yeah. Not a big fan of it, but.
On the minutes, there's no link there. I mean, not on the minutes, but on the agenda. Usually it would go on the agenda.
Well, if there's somebody that needs to be here, say for a variance hearing, and they couldn't be here, we would give them a Zoom link. But if people want to
Well, I
watch-
realized I was late tonight, okay,
Yeah.
before I was late. And I figured, well, I looked up, could I Zoom in? And I wouldn't be late. But I saw no Zoom link, and so then I was late.
Okay, so when I Zoomed, they knew well ahead of time I was going to be here.
See, I thought there was.
It wasn't a last minute.
Now,
thing,
as
it
a
was
member,
something set up.
you can't do that last minute. It has to be planned.
Ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was a generic. Back in the days of COVID, they put that link on every agenda, as I recall.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't do that anymore.
Yes, Elaine.
Can I just say that if you ever listen to meetings in which Zoom is allowed, you can't hear the people. It's not distinct. It's
not preferable.
It's not.
Conservation Commission does it all the time, and, one of their members always
I
Zooms in.
wasn't want to make a practice of it, it just happened to be tonight that I
Yeah.
screwed
And I
up.
will tell you, when I Zoom, I have a hard time hearing some of what people are saying too, so I really struggle to hear everybody speak.
And I may be wrong, but I believe that when the Attorney General put the regulations in place, if members were zooming in, I think it had to be a planned thing. I may be wrong, but I'll look that up.
That answers the question. I'm not looking, I wasn't planning to do it, I just want to do it tonight if I could have.
We did call you, by the way.
Did?
Yeah, we called you.
I was on the road.
Okay. And I did notice, I think the old communication policy is still posted there. Elaine, could you just check?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all I have. And again, thank you for updating like the other things we noticed last week, the dog waste bylaw and stuff. Okay. And I have on here discussion on the regular periodic advice article.
Because I didn't get any comments, that's why.
Well, yeah, my
You're
comment.
okay with it?
I
You're
am,
okay
yeah.
with it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, okay. I did send it to Mike Rowe the other day.
Don't forget the body art. You missed body art.
Oh, I did, yes. Okay, sorry. So let's continue on. So we're all set with the regular periodic advice for the article. What are we going to do? Post it on the website, and you're going to send it to the Meeting House News?
Correct.
Okay.
But can we put like a little, the Board of Health advice corner or something like that, a little
Yes.
link, little clickbait there where they can click on that.
On our webpage. Yeah, I think that's,
Board of Health advice corner or some such thing.
And this would come under that. So my thought was when you were talking about the well getting tested, what about in that advice corner have is there a better time than others to test your well? I've never had a well that I had to test. I have a well that I don't use, so I don't bother. It's not usable well.
Well, I mean, I think it's unusual that anybody in town tests their well every year.
Well, I would if I used it.
I test mine once every 4 years.
really,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you,
Well, you're not on a well anymore.
no, but I was very cognizant of it. I mean, I know
And I think I test more than most anybody, except for
I
you.
tested mine at least annually, and then also if you had like a 25-year storm or something, because what happens sometimes is the water can overtop the.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
Come from the top.
So,
No,
But-
I don't think many people, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think many people test their wells annually.
that's good to get the message out then. A member of my family wound up dying because of a poisoned well. Like,
What?
yeah, he kept drinking the water that was bad.
What was in the water? Was
Coliform.
coliform killed him? He didn't get sick first and
He got very sick.
that was it though?
Yeah, he was my grandfather.
Jesus.
Very, yeah. So maybe I'm more aware of it than others because I had.
Yes, geez.
But
All right.
let's move on. Okay, body art licensing fees. Last time I made a suggestion. Has anyone found any other?
I have not, no.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Comfortable with your research.
Okay. So if everybody is comfortable with that, can I entertain a motion?
Yeah, I motion that we accept the body art licensing fees that we discussed at the last meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? The only further discussion that I'll put in is, for the record, for the body art establishment permit, be $350 for the first body art establishment permit, and then $200 thereafter, as long as the permit doesn't expire. Application for body art practitioner permit is $100 per year, and for the apprenticeship practitioner permit is $75 per year. So I have a motion and a second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
If I could just ask Rich that Now that that's been voted on, we will add that to our fee structure. That's been posted online. We'll update that. And then at some point in the fall, as we talked about preparing for the annual permit fees, which are the first of the year, sometime in September, October area, we'll revisit our entire fee structure.
Yeah. Okay. Public session. We have no one here for public session.
Oh, Elaine has something.
Elaine?
Question about the, no, this goes back to the periodic advice article.
Yeah.
Is Gary going to handle that as far as sending it to the Meeting House News, or who's going to be doing that and getting it posted on the website? Who's going to handle doing that part?
Good question.
Can you do that?
Who normally posts our stuff online on the webpage?
I wouldn't think I'd have
The webpage is not as big of an issue. We can do that. The Meeting House News, I've not ever done it. Kathy might be able to.
Kathy's, from a news media standpoint,
Yeah.
we do advertisements.
Right.
Kathy has been the one who would reach out to somebody.
Right.
So if you want it to be funneled through the department,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
we'll ask Kathy to take care of that
Okay.
responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think it would be best to do that, not only from it being funneled and tracking, but I think
Just
that
have a procedure.
the document is then stored on our directory so that there's not a different document being submitted to a source, whether it be a media source or someplace else.
Okay. We have no public session. Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Oh, okay.
What about future items?
Oh, future date, next meeting.
Any future items?
We always accept future items, but do you have something now that you want to mention?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I'd like to have, I'm just throwing this out there, I'd like to have a presentation by, is it Chandler? Who's handling
yeah.
emergency response?
Yeah.
Jack Chandler.
Yeah.
Great.
He was in, what, 3 months ago?
Actually, before you were on the board, he actually came to us and said that he wanted to do.
I mean, we've got thousands of dollars worth of equipment somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
It needs to be
And he's
maintained.
inventoried it. Yeah.
We need to, does it need to be calibrated? Does it need to be checked? How often does it need to be checked?
Jack does that.
Can we get a presentation from him so we
Yeah,
we understand what are the requirements?
he's already come to us and asked to do that.
Pardon?
Jack has already come to the board, actually,
do that.
before, yes. So he was going
A
to,
presentation?
yeah.
Okay, so when are they going to do it?
Well, he's going to get back to us. So we'll just reach out to him and remind him.
I will ask him. I know that he has property up in Maine that in the summer months he's up there, but I'll ask him if he either has something more immediate or if he wants to wait until the fall. I don't know, but I will ask him.
Yeah.
He and Barry were there just last week, and I think they went through the inventory.
I know when he was here last time, he said he was going to
Yeah, I
go
think they
through
did.
It'd be nice if he
Yeah.
brings us up around and we can see the equipment and better understand. You've got radios, you've got antennas, you've got
I
boxes of equipment.
I would think it might be best to do that during the day, not at a meeting.
Sure.
Yeah. And, you know, could communicate with Jack and find out when the next time he's in to do that. The other thing that, you know, as far as that goes, and I think we've already talked about it, is the whole thing with the exercises. You know, I don't have a password, so I don't want them to think I'm ignoring them, you know?
What are you talking about?
And we have to get your email on there.
Respond in, like, when they send a text message?
Yeah, I tried, but I
Yeah, I
can't
tried
get a
last time, it
password.
didn't work. No,
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
you will in a second.
I called him and said, hey, I tried to respond to that warning. Do you know who do we talk to? She said, I don't know. You know? So he didn't, so I was like, okay, so I'm not the only one, so we need to know.
One comes through, a voice call comes in, and then when they call in, you just say you press X or star to acknowledge that you got it, and then they say they recorded.
So-
Then the text message also comes through and I get the
So
same thing.
here's what I found. Because in the past, when I got the voice message, I could just hit the button and it logs me in.
Right.
If I miss the voice call and I get a text, I can't access it, or the email. So what this is all about is it PHEP? Yeah, Public Health Emergency Preparedness. As the Board of Health, we're in the loop, and so they do quarterly exercises. And
That group?
yeah, the group, the statewide group. So they do it in regions. So they'll do a quarterly exercise for our region.
You're supposed to respond.
Yeah, all they want you to, you're just acknowledging that you got it.
The message.
Yeah. There's nothing
So far, it's just a test.
yeah, nothing more that we have to do. It's not like, the full exercise, like they're gonna ask you questions or anything like that. So I know Jack will have to put your contact information on there if you want to be on it. Nobody has to be on it. So anyways,
One other item for future
Yeah.
to consider is what you were talking about dams with this couple that came in today. There's dams all up and down North Row Road, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's big dams up there, big water bodies up at the,
Oh, at the Wiki-Piki.
there's two huge bodies of water up there that are dammed up.
Right.
And
Town of Clinton owns those dams.
I come from a little bit of personal experience. There was a dam when I was in college. I was working for a Patrica construction company out of Pittsfield. And a dam, it was I think it was in the town of Tyringham, which was adjacent to the town of Lee, Mass, on the turnpike there. And that dam failed. It was an earthen dam. It failed. And it flooded that town of Lee. And it was a small pond. It wasn't that big of a pond. It was incredible, the damage that did. And everybody's looking at everybody else as to who was supposed to inspect that dam and why wasn't it inspected. Is there any concern from anybody about the condition of these dams up here? Is anybody checking into them? Should it something we should do or look into? They're big bodies of water up there under here.
They are considerable size.
Much bigger than this pond that was in Lee, and you should have seen the damage it did. No one's looked at it.
Well, actually, especially with all the rains, you see it all over, that these big bodies of water being held. So, really is
Something to consider, I guess. Huh?
It is something to consider. Whose job is it, and who makes sure they
I would
do
write to the state and to find out if there's
Well, I'm going to find out who Jay talks to from
All right,
DCR, Department of Dam Safety, and
okay. See if there's any, see
I
if
can ask
that's looked into.
Yeah.
All right.
what is the situation with the Wiki-Piki dams?
Well, there's more than one up there.
Oh, I know. That's why I said dams.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I go hiking up there. So, okay. So, when I hear back from Jay, I'll make a phone call and see if I can get some information, and I'll report back.
Sounds good?
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Can I?
I motion.
Well, our next meeting is,
Traditionally, in what we would have posted, July 10th.
Yeah.
Now, again, the holiday is the 4th, which is the Friday before. I hope that doesn't pose any conflicts.
it's the weekend before, right? Yeah.
No problem.
So July 10th. Your motion to adjourn?
A motion we adjourn?
Second that motion.
No discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great.